A new and different weather pattern is on the horizon, but first, we've got to go through a few more rounds of tornadoes, high winds, and very large hail to get there. We'll have all those details, plus a look at the rest of our work week, a peek into the long range, and a new sunspot complex rotating towards Earth. What does that all mean? And how's your weather IQ? We're about to find out. A new episode of Cold Rain's Weather World starts right now. Hi folks, and welcome into the channel. Jason Pritchard coming at you with a brand new action-packed, exciting edition of Cold Rain's Weather World, the fastest growing new weather show on the internet. And one of the reasons for that is because we've got all the weather. What we do here is talk about the upcoming weather for the day, the upcoming week or weekend, and we focus on important weather events that are either upcoming or already occurring so that you're prepared and you understand what you need to know about the weather in the near term and the long term to plan your life around whatever it is that you're doing. And we also promise to leave you smarter than when you came. One of the ways that we do that is by showing you some of the mechanisms that drive the weather and hopefully help you understand that stuff a little bit better. You can always go to your local newscast or your National Weather Service and get the forecast, but I want to provide a little bit extra here and show you a little bit about what's going on to make the weather. And so we do that. The other way that we leave you smarter is by testing your weather IQ, and we always start the show with that, and that's what I'm going to do right here, right now. So today's weather IQ question. Let's see if you know this. This is about tsunamis. We don't have a tsunami out there today, fortunately. Hopefully we won't have one anytime soon, but this is what you need to know. What is the first warning sign that a tsunami might occur? Sudden calmness of the ocean, a large change in the color of the sea, a large wave approaching from the distance. It's always a good sign. And D, a strong earthquake. If you know the answer, as usual, type it in the comment section. And if you do not know it, just hang on to the end of the show and we will get to the answer. I'll show it to you then, okay? We'll see you in a minute. All right, so we're going to kick things off by taking a look at what happened yesterday, and then we're going to talk about today's forecast and what's going on out there right now, what you can expect over the course of today and tonight. Then we'll talk about the severe weather threat that exists for this afternoon, kind of do a little bit of a deeper dive into that. We'll look at the week ahead, including more severe weather and flooding. Then we'll get into a pattern change that at least is temporarily going to change how things are shaping up weather-wise. And we'll wrap everything up by taking a look at a couple of geological type events that may be set to affect us sometime in the near future. So we're going to look at all of those things today, and I'll have all the chapters broken out in the description of the video so you can skip around where you need to get to, but come back and watch the rest of the show. You'll enjoy it. You'll learn a few things. We'll have a little fun along the way. So yesterday we had a moderate risk up here in the upper Midwest, and certainly saw some tornadoes, hail, and winds associated with that moderate risk all the way down this frontal zone back into the southern plains here down in Texas. We saw severe reports. The winner for largest hail I saw was in Greer, Oklahoma, where they had baseball-size hail. That is 3 inches in diameter, roughly. And so very damaging hail there. And we saw a wind report of 93 miles per hour in Texas. That's the highest non-tornado wind report that I saw. So they win for wind down in Texas. Wouldn't want to be anywhere near that. Satellite image this morning shows plenty of activity out there. We've got rain in Seattle, Portland, Spokane, up here in the Northwest associated with these clouds. Clouds out here from Texas all the way up along that frontal zone until we get into the low pressure that's up here in Canada, rain associated with that. We've got some shower and thunderstorm activity. Our lightning display picks that up very well. This cluster of storms that's been moving through Oklahoma and Kansas this morning, now making its way into Missouri, has had some severe weather associated with that. Just some general cloud cover here in the southeast, but the East Coast is shaping up to have a pretty nice day overall. Looking at the radar image, we can really see what's going on here if I can actually get my display to size properly on the screen. There we go. That's pretty good. So we can see those showers out here in the Pacific Northwest, even some snow moving through the Great Lakes as cold air filters in on the backside of that low pressure system, dragging a frontal zone through. We've got showers and thunderstorms along that front here in Indiana, Illinois. We've seen some thunder there. This complex has persisted through the evening hours and has brought severe weather. And you can actually see this little line moving into Springfield now, probably into Joplin, going into Springfield. But seen some severe weather reports out of this. Penny, nickel-size hail winds in 50s and 60 miles per hour range. And so this will persist through the daytime and may ebb and flow as it propagates to the east. Looking here at the hazards map, you can actually see what's going on. So we've got really the only area that we need to focus in on here. We've got a little, some wind advisories up here in Wisconsin for gusty winds, but the main threat area is here where you see these greens and pinks and yellows and things like that. Flood watches are up through Wednesday. We're expecting multiple rounds of thunderstorms here that are going to drop multiple inches of rain. And so the flood watches are up. We're looking at a severe thunderstorm watch through the mid-morning hours, and we're seeing severe weather. There's even a tornado report now here. It looks like it's close to Joplin, but we've got severe weather, severe thunderstorms where you see the yellow here. And so very active morning for you folks driving around out in Oklahoma, Kansas, and into Missouri. So take it easy out there. Pay attention through this area through the day. This is going to be one of the focus points or focal points for severe weather and flooding. So have multiple ways to receive alerts and stay weather aware. Moderate risk of excessive rainfall from Texas into Oklahoma, including Oklahoma City. A slight risk around that all the way up into Missouri, and a marginal risk surrounding that. Surface map wise, we see our low pressure up here in Canada, a little bit of snow on the backside of that, but out ahead of the big warm sector, we're seeing an overlap of training thunderstorms and severe weather. So we're going to see an overlapping of flooding concerns and severe weather concerns from Texas all the way up into New York State, and then some shower activity out in the Pacific Northwest this afternoon. And then finally, we take a look here at our surface map through the day, and I'll roll this back so we can see what happens. Showers and thunderstorms out here in Oklahoma and Kansas, moving into Missouri this morning. Watch what happens as we get into the afternoon. Snow pulls out into Canada up north. That frontal zone lights up with activity. You can start to see showers and thunderstorms developing as we progress toward 4 and 5 o'clock. Activity in the northwest moves to the east, and then you can see all of that shower and thunderstorm activity all the way back down into Texas through this evening. That will flare up and maximize over the course of the evening, early evening, and then die out as we get into overnight areas, except for maybe this cluster back in Oklahoma. There are some mechanisms that may keep that alive and going through the nighttime hours. So that's what's going on there. And then temperature-wise for today, high temperatures, very, very warm, essentially from Texas all the way up into the eastern Great Lakes. Out ahead of that frontal zone, we've got strong southwesterly flow, and you can see that showing up here. So all the way up into Maine, we're going to see highs in the 70s. May not get out of the 40s or even 30s in the UP of Michigan, but warm across much of the west. A little cooler, of course, than it is in the southeast behind that front, and certainly more stable out here. But the San Joaquin Valley, the desert southwest, you guys are going to be very warm there. And then overnight tonight, in case you have any planning concerns, most areas are going to be above freezing outside of the mountain peaks. You can see the purple, that represents freezing temperatures or below up here in the lakes as well. But everybody else, particularly in the southeast and mid-south and south central areas, are going to be muggy and warm with overnight lows dipping into the 60s. And that is your Tuesday forecast. So we've got another severe threat today and through this afternoon and evening, and you're seeing some of that play out this morning. But that frontal zone, as I said, is sort of arcing back this way. We've got a low pressure system out here in New Mexico that will be some energy in the upper atmosphere is helping to spark off a low pressure here in New Mexico in the desert southwest. And so we're going to see all of those things kind of interact together. When you forecast severe weather, there are so many different things that can go into how these events unfold. Boundaries laid by previous night's convection, cold fronts, dry lines, low pressure, little pockets of energy in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And sometimes the situation is kind of complex, and it's hard to discern the exact location of the best threat. The SPC does a really good job of analyzing that and updating these areas of risk through the week and throughout the day. So maybe you want to pay attention to how this threat evolves today, but really looking at two main focal areas here from New York, essentially Watertown, upstate New York, all the way back into near Indianapolis, and then another area back into Midland, Texas, and up into northwestern Texas near the Panhandle, stretching into Oklahoma. But a slight risk around that and a marginal risk around that. So anybody in this area could see severe weather. Tornado threat looks to be the lowest of all the threat hazards. That isn't to say that we won't see any tornadoes. We certainly could. There may be some enough shear. There will be enough shear up in the upper Ohio Valley and up into the northeast here, upper eastern lakes, to produce some spin in supercells and even within line segments. So we could see some tornadoes form here. Also in Texas, the tornado threat could be enhanced as we've got a pocket of energy moving through the desert southwest, and we're also going to see a low pressure form and kind of ride along that cold front. That will provide spin in the atmosphere and some shear. So we could see any supercells that remain discrete have a greater potential for producing a tornado or two. Wind threat looks to be highest up here in the Ohio Valley up through eastern lakes, where we're going to see some organization potentially. Thunderstorms kind of develop and then they organize into line segments and clusters. Upper level winds help that to happen, and so those conditions will be in place. So we may see some strong winds up in this area. And a little bit potentially down here with any supercells that develop, we could see some significant wind damage in Texas as well. Hail threat looks to be primarily centered down here in South Texas, where we're looking at, or northwestern Texas rather, we're looking at supercells initially forming and then potentially merging into another mesoscale convective complex and sweeping into the Oklahoma area into Arkansas overnight. So we'll have to see how that plays out, but significant hail is possible here. Looking at the fuel for thunderstorms this afternoon, we're going to get on a display that makes this viewable. You can actually see how this plays out. So we've got plenty of fuel. Where you see greens, that's enough. Even blue could be enough if you have wind shear, and we do have some wind shear here. I'm not going to show the wind map today, but look how as we go through the day today, later this morning, we get into later this morning, and you see plenty of instability across Texas, and we're starting to see instability build as we head toward our threat area. And then we get into the afternoon, lots of instability here in Texas, Oklahoma, southern Oklahoma, southern Arkansas, up through Tennessee, Kentucky, and we're seeing that build overnight. As we get into 8 p.m. this evening, there's that cold front. You can kind of see where the dry area is behind that, instability out ahead of that. So that's where we're looking at thunderstorm development. Plenty of fuel for our thunderstorm activity this afternoon. Here is the lower level wind. So this is what we would see up about 5,000 feet off the ground. And you can see plenty of strong winds from west Texas all the way up near our frontal zone. The very best shear is going to be displaced up here in Canada and around the Great Lakes, just north of where we're going to see the focus for thunderstorm development, which is good news. It means the severe weather threat may not be a higher end threat, but in any event, we're going to see plenty of opportunity for severe weather to develop. As we go through the day today, that jet continues to persist. You have enough flow up here in the eastern lakes to really enhance the shear profiles through the atmosphere. So that's what's going on there down here in Texas. That will abate as the evening wears on, and then become enhanced again with the night jet. Sometimes at night you get pressure differences, and you can get temperature differences, things like that, and you get enhancement of the nocturnal jet, and see that jet activity move off to the north there. And then how that all plays out through the day, we've got our thunderstorm activity moving through this morning. As we go through the afternoon, those complexes will continue to persist. We have one going into Kentucky, Tennessee, more storms developing along that boundary back into Texas, and you can see that really light up and then up here through the afternoon as well, up into New York. And as we get into this evening, that will dissipate and everywhere except for the area that I talked about before, where there's going to be continued good southerly flow, and you get that replenishment of moisture. Maybe you have a mesoscale convective complex that develops and continues to organize that wind threat overnight, and we see that through the overnight hours here in Texas. And so we'll look for that, and that is your severe weather threat for this afternoon. Yesterday, I tried to find a weather history segment, and I couldn't really find anything that I thought was all that particularly interesting, so I just went with 3 events that occurred in history, just general non-weather events. Today, I found a weather event that occurred in 2020 that I thought was very interesting. So I'm going to share that with you today. On April the 29th, 2020, a lightning bolt stretched 477 miles across the southern United States, setting a new world record as the longest lightning strike ever recorded. That was in 2020. It's called the Mega Flash. It was verified by the World Meteorological Organization in 2022. The record-setting lightning bolt spanned, as I said, 477 miles, and it went across 3 states. It originated in Houston, Texas, and stopped in Louisiana or in Mississippi, actually. So that was southeastern Mississippi. Unbelievable. So that's a very, very long lightning strike. I bet it was loud too. A lot of people probably heard that one. So that is what happened this day on April the 29th in 2020. Now, moving on through the course of the work week, as I said before, we've at the top of the show, we've got a pattern change inbound, but not before we go through a couple of more days of severe weather. And tomorrow, we're looking at a slight risk from Texas to southeastern Oklahoma into western Arkansas for a small chance of tornadoes, 15% wind, 15% hail. Again, I misspoke yesterday. I said 15% chance of something within 20 miles of a point. It's 25 miles of a point. It's not that big of a deal, but I wanted to make sure that's correct. 15, when you see these probabilities, it's a percentage chance of something occurring within 25 miles of a location. So just know that when we go through these things here. But again, that low pressure system is going to be moving up through along this cold front, and there's going to be wind shear, there's going to be instability. So we could pay attention tomorrow. You could see some severe weather in these areas. Looking at the categorical range, so we're looking at marginal risk around that from much of Texas, Arkansas, up into Kentucky and southern half of Illinois and Indiana and most of Missouri. So any of these areas could see a severe threat, and we might see some of these areas become at least be upgraded to a slight risk tomorrow. We're going to pay attention to that. There's some question marks, some differences in timing of things and models and how things will play out, but pay attention in these areas tomorrow. You may see an upgrade happen. And then as we get on into let's see, Thursday, we're looking at, this is Thursday to Friday, so this is Thursday, yep. So we're looking at marginal risk, and again, we might see an upgrade here at some point, but from Texas up into the lakes again, that frontal zone will be slow to move through, and so we'll see a moisture pooling along that, some lift along that, and question marks around wind shear to organize anything. And so that's what we're going to be looking at over the course of the next couple of days. So just stay tuned in these areas. We'll continue to cover that risk tomorrow. Looking at the threat for flooding tomorrow. We saw the one for today, so this is for tomorrow. We're looking at Oklahoma into Arkansas. Again, multiple rounds. That's the kind of the main focal point, but several inches of rainfall could come out of multiple rounds of shower and thunderstorm activity. Slight risk around that, marginal risk around that. So pay attention if you're in any of those areas. And there it is right there. That's a better map. So that's what we got going on tomorrow. And looking at how much rain we could see, the SPC or the WPC actually puts out this precipitation map. This is a 48-hour map, and it shows us as much as 5 inches of rain in Oklahoma. So any of these reds are really 3 inches or more. And so pay attention if you're in these areas. If a flash flood warning is issued for your area, know what to do, know where to go, and all of that. So that is what we're looking at over in terms of our severe weather and flooding threats over the next couple of days. Looking out, if we look at the surface map and how all of that's going to play out, check this out. So this afternoon, so this is, I'm going to go back, I'm going to roll it back through Wednesday morning. So this is Wednesday morning. Shower and thunderstorms out here in Texas and Oklahoma. We've got some showers out in the Pacific Northwest. Those have moved on in to the Intermountain West and the Rocky Mountains, upper plains. And so watch what happens is we're going to see lots of shower and thunderstorm activity over the south and deep central plain area up into the upper Mississippi Valley as we start to move this forward into the morning hours on Thursday. That low pressure system is going to be moving up along that cold front. Cold front on the northern end is going to kind of sag south through time. It's going to take a little bit longer for the southern end of that to move, and so that trough is persistent out west. But that'll eventually happen. We'll get on into Thursday evening and then to Friday morning. We're seeing that low pressure move into Canada. That's our secondary wave of low pressure, bringing some rain and some showers along that. Trailing energy will spark some showers around Oklahoma and Texas, and we may see a line of convection move through the southern plains and into the south central areas of the deep south throughout the day on Friday. So we'll have to pay attention to that and see how that threat evolves. Other than that, as we get on into Friday evening, another little wave here brings in showers and thunderstorms, but high pressure moves in and will probably put an end to the severe weather threat for a time. We're going to see some ridging in the upper atmosphere that will diminish the severe weather threat. And so we're going to cool off a bit. and see more stable conditions develop, which is a nice pattern change from what we've been in with just active severe weather every day, and then more energy moving into the West Coast. Stay subscribed to the channel, folks. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're subscribed. I'll turn the notifications on, rather, and that way you'll get notified when I put out new videos. If you like the content, give us a like, and always leave a comment in the comment section. I always want to remind you to do that. If there's something I can pray over for you, always happy to do that. Leave a suggestion for the show. Anything I can pray over, any suggestions that you have, certainly we'll take that under advisement. Looking out here as we get into toward the weekend, this is Saturday morning. We've got cooler than normal temperatures over much of the central part of the country, with warmer than normal hanging on across the East Coast, warmer anomalies pushing in west. Just putting this out in time a little bit so you can see how this plays out through the day on Sunday. Looking at cooler over much of the eastern half of the country, warmer over the west. A ridge is going to eventually get established in Canada and warm the northern tier up a bit. But look, those cool anomalies are hanging on. We've got another trough coming in here into the southwest as we get into early next week. So we may end up seeing business pick back up in the severe weather department, but not before we cool off across the south through the weekend into early next week. And then looking at the upper air pattern, we haven't seen this in a couple of days, so I thought I would show it. This is Saturday morning, so we've got that trough with the cool weather coming into the east, some showers and thunderstorms back into the Ohio Valley and down to the Dixie Alley. Ridge out west putting a stop to the severe weather out there. And as we go out in time, you can see that ridge sort of migrates up to the north. We've got another trough coming in by Monday morning, and we could see severe weather firing back up as we get into early next week. And then over time, that trough hangs out here, slowly moves. It's hard to move into a ridge, and so that ridge is pretty strong up here in Canada. The GFS kind of agrees with this too, and then things kind of get muted out as we get out in time. Looking at the Weather Prediction Center, here's our 6 to 10 day outlook. Much above normal from the 6 to 10 day period. So that's outside of this upcoming work week. This is we start to get into the second half of the weekend and beyond. We start to see a signal for above normal up in here in the northern plains in the Midwest, much below normal in the southeast, down here in Florida, below in Alaska, above in Hawaii, much below normal in terms of rainfall in the 6 to 10 day period, but much above out here as that trough reestablishes. Southwesterly flow comes up, brings in moisture, and we start to see a boundary set up here and see thunderstorm activity return. Mostly near normal to slightly above in Alaska, above in Hawaii. Volcanic activity. Here's our geological update, folks. We added a new one yesterday, the Atka Volcanic Complex. It's an advisory for some activity that's around there. Nothing major yet, but we saw that added to our list. So now we have 5 areas to watch. There was a 4.7 magnitude earthquake up near Hope, Alaska, that's close to Anchorage. Not a lot of people felt the shaking in that. If I click on the little map here, maybe it'll show us. We'll scroll down, but yeah, here are the shaking reports. Very, very light, no damage done. So that's good. Solar activity, we don't have a lot out there, but we've got a sunspot turning in toward Earth, and it looks like that sunspot is developing, and it's an active solar cycle, so we could see some solar flaring take place. If that happens, could see some geomagnetic storms and some good aurora viewing, particularly across the north, or just depending on how strong that solar activity is. And so you can see here in the aurora map, nothing really to get excited about unless you live way up here in northern Canada. That is it for the day, folks. I hope you've had a good time with me today. I've had a good time putting this together, and thanks so much for joining me. And we're going to wrap up with the answer to today's trivia question. What is the first warning sign that a tsunami might occur? Sudden calmness of the ocean, a large change in the color of the sea, a large wave approaching from the distance, or a strong earthquake? And the answer is D, a strong earthquake. Earthquakes generally are the cause of tsunamis. Landslides can cause tsunamis too, but often earthquakes cause landslides. So earthquakes happen to be the number one contributor for tsunamis. And so when you have a strong earthquake, if you're near a body of water, watch out for a tsunami. If you're standing on the ocean and you see the water go way out, don't go pick up shells, run for your life. That's what happens. That water comes out, the tsunami comes in, builds up higher along the way, as it comes into shallower waters, the wave builds higher, and then it inundates the coastal areas. So watch out for tsunamis. Now you know about tsunamis. Now you know about the weather. And of course, this is Cold Rain, always reminding you, other weather stations run 24/7, but we got you covered 48, 14 right here at Cold Rain's Weather World. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.